Headed down the shore? Skip the hassle. Let Beach Caddy handle the heavy lifting. Bellhop and beach cart rentals are available in Ocean City, Sea Isle, Avalon, Stone Harbor, and Wildwood. Use the promo code Jimbo for 10% off bellhop and cart rentals. Beach Caddy takes the stress out of your Jersey Shore trip. Go to beachcaddy.app. Use the promo code Jimbo for 10% off your move-in, move-out bellhop service and beach cart rentals. Best beach carts at the Jersey Shore. What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for August 1st, 2025. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a feel-good Friday edition of the podcast, a championship Friday, and our greatest individual season in Philly sports history tournament. We got a big show like we always do on Friday, so let's get right into it. And I guess the big news is the trade deadline came and went. Obviously, the Phillies the other night picked up Jhoan Duran, which I believe is the correct pronunciation. Probably going to hear all kinds of different pronunciations of it, but from what I'm gathering, it's Jhoan Duran. So yesterday they did pick up Harrison Bader from the Twins for Hendry Mendez and Jeremy Villarreal. Kind of like a move. Yeah, he's a right-handed hitter, which they desperately need. Great fielder. Remains to be seen where he kind of fits into the rotation. Did win a Gold Glove. Instantly upgrades the outfield. I think through it all, I've had time to sleep on this. He's the best hitting outfielder we have right now as far as his statistics this year. He obviously upgrades our defense. So what does that mean moving forward? Dave Dombrowski did speak yesterday and was asked about Justin Crawford. Said he's ready to play, but if they call him up, he needs to actually play. Not sure if they have the capacity right now for that. It's not going to hurt him. He said to be down in AAA. And then he was asked about Max Kepler, and everybody's freaking out about what he said. But I think if you take time and really listen to what he's saying, they're going to make some decisions today on the roster and what that looks like. However, everybody's freaking out because he was like, yeah, he's our left fielder, blah, blah, blah. But I think the part that I got from that is basically he said he's our left fielder at this time. He's on our roster at this time. He didn't come out and give a glowing endorsement to him. And granted, part of the reason why they had to go out and get Harrison Bader is because Max Kepler has been an epic failure. They had a shot to sign Harrison Bader in the offseason, but they didn't. But we'll have to see what happens. There's a lot of options on the table. He was very non-committal about Crawford and Painter. Said he's not afraid to do it. He said Justin Gage is I think it's Justin Gage, Cage. What the guy they just drafted just started throwing, and not likely, but you never know. He was like, we've had players get drafted and come in and play. So we'll see how it plays out. I have a feeling within the next week or so, we're going to see some roster moves, obviously, today. However, I wouldn't be surprised if somehow Max Kepler, I heard rumors that they had some suitors for him, but they just couldn't get a deal done to try to trade him. Like I said, he can't be blind to the fact that Max Kepler is not what he was supposed to be. So we'll see how that plays out, what that means for Justin Crawford. But like I said, my takeaway was that at this time. So overall, I'd probably give the trade deadline moves a B. I'm not sure. Like I said, I think the Duran move is outstanding. And it's always going to come down to this. I don't care who they would have added. Yes, it could have made a difference with a right-handed bat in the lineup. I know a lot of people were talking about Stephen Kwan, but he's a left-hander. And if the asking price was as much as it was, God only knows we don't need a left-handed bat. But like I was saying, it always has come down, and it was always going to come down, and it's still going to come down to the players you have coming through and doing what they're paid to do. So I don't think adding, and I've said this a few times, I don't think adding whoever would have made that much of a difference for this team as far as the lineup. Yes, you could have shuffled some things around, but it was always going to be what the core of this team. If they go hot, they have a shot. If they go cold, then they don't. So they address the biggest, most glaring need and weakness on this team with the Duran trade. They got David Robertson, who should provide some steady veteran influence in that bullpen. There will be a move at some point to move one of the starters to the bullpen. So I'm feeling okay and pretty good about the bullpen. Lots of moves yesterday, though. The Padres just completely did home makeover San Diego edition. So we'll see how that works out for them. The Mets made a ton of moves. None really that I think are like, oh my goodness, the Mets. I do think it's going to be back and forth all summer between the Phillies and the Mets. But overall, decent trade deadline for the Phillies. I will say yesterday, in part, I did stick up for Dave Dombrowski, blaming Alvarado for the need for a big bullpen piece. Yesterday's move, the Harrison Bader thing, that's 100% on Dombrowski. The Kepler move did not work out, so that's why you were where you are. But I'll take it. I mean, the Phillies are heading in now to the August and September, down a half game to the Mets, solidly right there in the playoff race. Looks like it's probably going to be the 6 teams that it's been all year. 2 from the West, 2 from the East, and 2 from the Central. Just a matter of where everything kind of shakes out. But like I said, I will take it. Bader doesn't necessarily move the needle like, oh my goodness, for me. But if you bring in a guy, and you got to look at it like this: are the Phillies a better team today than they were on Monday? And you have to say, yes, they are. They got one of, if not the best closer that was available. You can make the argument that Mason Miller was in that conversation too, who went to the Padres, by the way. The outfield is better. As much as Bader, who knows what's going to happen, he makes the outfield better. So the team did get better. It's not like with Austin Hayes and the other moves he's made the previous couple off seasons where it's just like, okay. This team is significantly better than they were earlier this week. And that's the way you got to look at it. Vegas seems to agree. The Phillies now, post-trade deadline, are the second betting favorites to win the World Series. You have the Dodgers, then the Phillies, then the Mets. So Vegas seems to like what the Phillies did even more so than what the Padres did. So we'll see how that shakes out. But you got it. I don't know. Vegas and that was in multiple different sports books too that have the Phillies the number 2 team behind the Dodgers. So they seem to like what they did. And if it is what it is, those guys are very, very smart out in Vegas. You don't mess with their money. So if they're saying they're the second best odds to win the World Series, who am I to argue? Both guys will be available tonight as the Phillies open up a weekend series against the Tigers. It is Alumni Weekend. Looking forward to going down to the game tonight to see J-Roll and Ed Wade inducted into the Wall of Fame. I might even bust out my Chase Utley jersey from the 2009 season tonight. But Duran will wear number 59. I know there were some questions about that because Rob Thompson wore 59. Topper went with 49. So Duran will wear his number 59. And I would love to see that entrance tonight. Looking forward to it. But you have Ranger tonight. A great matchup tomorrow. Zach Wheeler versus Tariq Skubal. And then Sanchez on Sunday. But overall, you got to be happy with it. Like I said, maybe I'm reading too much into it, and I'm not maybe jaded or whatever. But the fact that he said at this time twice when talking about Max Kepler seems to me it was not a ringing endorsement for Max Kepler staying on this team through the end of the season. We'll see what happens with that, but I don't know. At this time, we'll see. Nola was scheduled to make his rehab start yesterday. They got rained out. Dombrowski did say he'll pitch today. Anxious to see where his velocity is at. I think that's going to determine whether or not this is going to be a good addition to have him come back, or if it's going to be more of the same he had earlier in this season. But here we are, 2 months left in the season. Time for the stretch run. Let's go and see what these Phils can do.
It's time for Fridays with AI, where we ask AI to rewrite Philly sports history. Every Friday only on This Day in Philly Sports History.
That's right. It is Friday. We spend Fridays with AI, brought to you as always by Philly Goat. Go to phillygoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. It's just a matter of time before the Johan Duran shirts come out. So go to Philly Goat, check out what they have to offer, and be sure to use that promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. So, of course, post-trade deadline, I was up a little bit later last night waiting for the conversation for AI to kind of crunch the numbers and everything. But I asked AI to play out the rest of the season with all the teams' updated rosters and specifically focus on what the Phillies' new additions are going to do. So according to AI, Phillies and Mets will battle down the stretch into September, with the Phillies eventually pulling away. Bader is pretty solid for them, but not spectacular. Has some key hits during that stretch run in September. Ends up hitting .264, 4 homers, and 25 RBI for the Phils after the trade. Kind of works into sort of a 3-man platoon with Marsh and Justin Crawford, who does get called up eventually at some point in August, according to AI. So the three of them sort of platoon between left and center. Didn't mention anything specifically about Max Kepler, but to me, that just sort of assumes that he's going to be DFA, cut, traded, whatever. So that's good news if you are a Justin Crawford fan. Bryce continues his hot streak, gets hot down the stretch, approaches almost 30 home runs for the season, gets his average up to about 290, which would be nice. And like I said, I think not far off. If the Phillies are going to be successful, it all starts with Bryce, and everybody else needs to do their job. So we'll see how that plays out. But AI is big on Bryce having a big 2-month stretch here down the toward the end of the season. Kyle Schwarber ends up the season with 53 home runs, second most in team history. Bomer ends up missing way more time with the rib injury than what originally was expected, leading to Otto Kemp getting more playing time. And the more playing time he gets, the better he gets in the field at third base, and the better his bat gets. So I know my boy John Foley is rooting for Otto Kemp to become the all-time Phillies home run leader for guys named Otto. According to AI, it happens within the next couple of weeks. Andrew Painter comes up and has a Marty Bystrom, like AI said. And if you're an older listener, you know Marty Bystrom was a rookie who came up and really helped the Phillies for that 1980 World Series run. He does come up and does have an impact, and then kind of fills in as sort of the cleanup role in the bullpen once the postseason starts. What else did AI say about that? Oh, Duran ends up, obviously he's the closer, comes in, saves 11 games, has a 2.75 ERA, electrifies the crowd, becomes an immediate fan favorite for the fans down at Citizens Bank Park. So what does it mean for the team success? According to AI, they do pull away from the Mets, win the division with 94 wins. And that's good enough for the number 1 seed. They predict that the teams in the West, the Cubs and the Brewers, are all going to beat up on each other. So the Phillies sneak in with the 1 seed with 94 wins. Dodgers get the 2 seed. Brewers win the NL Central. And that means the Mets, Padres, and Cubs are the wild card teams. So in the postseason, Phillies obviously get that bye, and right out of the gates, they get the rematch with the Mets in the divisional series. And just like the rest of the summer plays out, go back and forth. This goes 5 games, but the Phillies bullpen is the difference in this series as they win 3 games to 2. setting up yet another rematch. You're going to see a consistent theme here with the Padres in the NLCS. Phillies win that kind of easily in 6 games, 4-2. The offense really snaps out of it. Bryce has a big series, and then the bullpen once again is electric. So according to AI, the bullpen is really going to come together and be a strength of this team down the stretch, setting up a World Series match, another rematch with the Dodgers with the Yankees from 2009. Phillies this time win it in 6. Duran, very Brad Lidge-esque, comes in. The crowd is electric in Game 6, saves the game against the heart of the Yankees order. It's poetic justice for 2009. Citizens Bank Park, we see the World Series, and this team didn't really want to get into the offseason because there's so many different wormholes to go down there. But according to AI, the 2 additions do make the difference. I don't necessarily think this is that far-fetched. If the Phillies can come out of the National League, I think they have a decent shot to beat anybody coming out of the American League. Be great to have that rematch against the Yankees. It actually would be a rematch of the 1950 World Series as well. But the Phillies finally get it done, led by Duran, who is just money down the stretch and even better in the playoffs. And again, it's not that far-fetched. The people in Vegas are saying Phillies are the second betting favorites. But let me know your thoughts on what AI has in store for the rest of the season. I know a lot of people are not happy with what happened yesterday. But again, there's not sticking up, and I'm mad for the second straight day. I'm sticking up for Dombrowski. But I'm not going to. There's a lot of moving pieces. You don't know what asking prices were. There weren't a ton of right-handed bats available. And the last thing we need is another left-handed bat. So I'm okay with it. AI is very good with it, saying the Phillies win the World Series after going through the gauntlet of Phillies rematches, beating the Mets, the Padres, and then the Yankees to bring home their 3rd World Series title. But let me know your thoughts. 267-495-8531. That's the Back to the Future voice and text line. Is AI crazy? I don't know. Maybe they didn't have time to crunch the numbers, but I did, like I said, check back on it. And the Phillies are the second favorite to win the World Series right now post-trade deadline. So that's got to mean something. That is Fridays with AI, though. As always, Fridays with AI is brought to you by Philly Goat. Use that promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. All right, big weekend for Philly legends, I guess you could say. Eric Allen will be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame tomorrow. Much deserved. It's about time. Looking forward to watching that and seeing. But one of the all-time Eagles greats, had some success with the Raiders as well. But Eric Allen, number 21, going into the Hall of Fame for the Pro Football Hall of Fame as a member. I would assume, I don't know how football does it. I don't think they do it the same way baseball does, where they have to choose a team. But very, very important piece of those 90s Buddy Ryan defenses for the Eagles. So shout out to him. Next up, let's get Seth Joyner in. Come on now. As far as camp, not a lot of news, but Jahad Campbell continues to impress. Looking forward to hopefully seeing him play next Thursday night as they open up the preseason. But that would be a huge, huge win for the Eagles if he can play. And then looking around the NFC East, man, where to even start with this? I guess the big story is Terry McLaurin not happy, has requested a trade because the Commanders refuse to give him a contract extension. So he's like, trade me then, which is awesome because Terry has been an Eagle killer, always has good numbers against the Eagles. So you got to love it. And I did see, I forget who wrote it now, but the tweet of the day, despite all of what was going on with the Major League Baseball trade deadline, the tweet of the day said, Paul George did more for Philadelphia than we could ever imagine. And essentially said by him eating up $55 million and not playing, taking money out of Josh Harris's pocket and not allowing him to pay Terry McLaurin. So you got to love that. So welcome to all my Washington Commanders fans out there. Welcome to the life of a Philadelphia 76ers fan. You guys love him, though. He's giving you a new stadium, but Josh Harris, man. So you got that going on in Washington, and then the Cowboys are just the Cowboys. Fooling around at practice consistently has led Brian Schottenheimer to essentially punish them by making them run sprints. Coaches as well. I saw the video yesterday. You had the players and coaches running sprints yesterday. If that is not the most Mickey Mouse organization right now, and I will put them as more Mickey Mouse than the Cleveland Browns, only in the fact that they're delusional enough to think they have a chance. At least in Cleveland, they're kind of resigned themselves to the fact they're just a joke of a franchise. But the Cowboys actually think they're good. So you got to love it. And then, of course, the Giants, you got Jackson Dart, who is not throwing darts. And then you got 40-year-old Russell Wilson and then Jameis Winston. So their defense is going to be good. But the Giants could maybe sneak in because of just the dumpster fires that Washington and Dallas are right now. So got to love it as an Eagles fan. And everybody thought Nick Sirianni was a joke. How you guys feeling about that now? All right, let's do some housekeeping. First, be sure to follow me on social media, Jimbo_Mott on Twitter and TikTok. On Instagram, at Philly Jimbo. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mott, and continue to spread the word as we grow this thing. If you're new, Fridays are a great day to have this be your first time listening, so welcome. If you want highlights, they are on my social media. They come out later in the day as busy. Obviously, I have a day job too, but still trying to figure out the new studio and setting up timing and things like that so things can get set out. So stay tuned for that. Obviously, today is the championship for our greatest individual season in Philly sports history. Steve Carlton from 1972 will take on Wilt Chamberlain from 1961-62. More on that later in the show. And then in August, starting on Monday, we'll do our top 5 list for the first 25 years of the century. Just a look at the top athletes, teams, moments, college, whatever. So stay tuned for that starting on Monday. And I mentioned Philly legends. Shout out to Smarty Jones, who gets inducted into the National Racing Museum and Hall of Fame up in Saratoga today. Like I said, this is a huge weekend. You had Dick Allen going into the Baseball Hall of Fame last weekend, Eric Allen going into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Smarty Jones going into the Racing Hall of Fame. You got to love it. Things are looking good here in Philly. You got AI saying the Phillies are going to win the World Series. You got to love it. All right, yesterday's trivia question. I asked you, yesterday, Manny Trio ended his streak of consecutive games without an error for second baseman at 89. At the time, that was number 2 on the list, currently number 6. 3 of the top 5 had Phillies ties, and I asked you who they were, and they would be Placido Polanco, who is number 1, the late Ryan Sandberg, who just passed away this week, and Joe Morgan. Everybody got Sandberg and Polanco. Nobody got Joe Morgan, but Joe Morgan did play a season or 2 for the Phillies, went to a World Series, but has one of the longer streaks. His was 90. His was the one that Manny Trio was behind. So thank you to everybody who reached out. Be sure to come to the Discord channel. Let's have some Philly sports talk this weekend. First link in the description, and let's have some fun with this. This day in Philly sports history is proud to be a part of the Clashing Conferences Sports Fan Network, a growing community of diehard fans turning their sports passion into something special. Whether you're looking for unique shows, want to launch your own podcast but don't have the time, or need production services, the ClashingConferences.com has everything you need. Explore fan-driven content, become a member, or tap into their media services to level up your brand. That's ClashingConferences.com, where fans' voices get heard. All right, so I figured in honor of Jahan Duran, let's go with today's Philly sports trivia question. What are the top 5 seasons in saves for the Phillies? So one guy has 2 of the top 5 single season saves for the Phillies, but what 4 players have had 40 or more saves for the Phillies in a season? Hit me up on the Discord. And let me ask that again, because that came out very, very wonky. 4 players have had 40 or more saves for the Phillies. Who are they in a season? A couple names you might be obvious. One that was kind of surprising to me. So hit me up on that. But what four Phillies have had 40 or more saves in a season? All right, August 1st. And I'd be remiss if I did not mention this. My late grandmother, today was her birthday. Huge Philly sports fan. One of the people that would love to talk Phillies and Eagles with. Today would have been her birthday. She would have been 90. So shout out to you, Mom, on your 90th birthday. But August 1st in Philadelphia sports history, let's first go back to 1950. And on this day in 1950, the Phillies split a doubleheader with the Reds at Shibe Park. They won game one 6-4. Del Ennis went 2 for 3, 3 RBIs and a homer. But then the Phillies lost game two 4-1. And the only run came on a home run by Stan Lapata. And on the mound that day for the Phillies was Curt Simmons, who was having a great season for the Whiz Kids that year, possibly on track to get 20 wins in a season. Only went 3 2/3, though, gave up 7 hits, 3 runs, and 2 strikeouts. But he possibly could have been a little bit distracted because earlier in the day he found out he was a member of the Pennsylvania National Guard, found out that his battalion or group was going to be called into active duty for the Korean War. He didn't know the timing or the logistics of it, just knew that within 30 days they were going to be called in to active duty. He became the first major league player called to active duty for the Korean War. He was officially inducted, and they were called in and sent over on September 10th, which allowed him to pitch 9 more times before his active duty started. Unfortunately, never got to 20 wins, partly because the season was cut short due to his active duty. Ended up with 17 wins. Phillies did win the pennant, but they certainly missed Curt Simmons down the stretch in the World Series, getting swept by the Yankees. But back then it was way different because those guys wanted to, like, as disappointing it was for the Phillies, it was a badge of honor to be called into active duty. So kudos and thank you for your service, Curt Simmons, who was called in to active duty, or activated, I should say, for active duty on this day. Did get 9 more starts in before he officially went, but obviously was a little bit distracted, I'm sure, on the mound on this day in 1950. And fast forward to 1984, it's a feel-good Friday. Let's have some fun with this one. This is something I never even knew until yesterday. So this was not on my original outline for this day in Philly sports history. But on this day in 1984, Mike Schmidt, Garry Maddox, and Al Holland had a guest starring role on the soap opera One Life to Live. They played construction workers. It came about because Maddox was a fan of the show, began watching it in the Army, had a couple of friends that he knew that worked on the show, asked them if they could possibly get on. He convinced Mike Schmidt and Al Holland to go on with him. Earlier that year, when they were on a road trip in New York, they filmed it, but it aired on this day in 1984. So Mike Schmidt, Garry Maddox, and Al Holland all were on One Life to Live on this day in 1984. Like I said, let's have some fun here on a Friday. Some other noteworthy events in Phillies history on this date. In 1983, they beat the Cardinals 2-1. Steve Carlton had 12 strikeouts. Playing left field that day for the Blue Jays, making, I believe, his 3rd career start, was Joe Carter. His first trip to the vet, got his first career hit that day off of Steve Carlton. Unfortunately for us Philly fans, one of the biggest hits in his career, probably the biggest hit in his career, also occurred against the Phillies some years later up in Toronto, 10 years later to be exact. And then in 1996, Scott Rowland made his major league debut, got his first hit in his second at-bat, a double. Hall of Fame player, unfortunately, just didn't necessarily work out here in Philadelphia. And that's what happened on this day, August 1st, in Philadelphia sports history. All right, and so now the moment you've all been waiting for, the championship of our greatest individual season, and really Both of these guys were number 2 seeds, but no surprise here at all. You have the number 2 seed out of the Phillies region, Steve Carlton from 1972. You know the stats, 27-10, a 1.97 ERA, 30 complete games, 310 strikeouts, 346 in the third innings. They needed every single inning that he pitched that year. Won the Cy Young, was an all-star, won 27 games for a 59-win team, which is just ridiculous if you think about it. Taking on Wilt Chamberlain with possibly the greatest season in NBA history from 1961-62 while playing for the Philadelphia Warriors. Averaged 50.4 points per game, 25.7 rebounds per game, and a ridiculous 48.5 minutes per game. Led the league in free throws, free throw attempts, field goals attempts. Was an all-star, all-NBA. Finished number 2, though, in the MVP. Not sure what the voters were thinking. I guess because Bill Russell won the championship, they decided to give it to him. But how does Wilt not win an MVP that season? He scored 100 points in a game that year, allegedly possibly hungover. I mean, that's MVP worthy if you ask me. Sixers did lose to the Celtics, though, in the division finals. But now it's your turn. What is the greatest individual season in Philadelphia sports history? Is it Steve Carlton's 1972 season, Wilt Chamberlain's 1961-62? You have all weekend to think about it. Get your vote in. Spread the word. Let's break the record for votes in this tournament today. It's a tough one. Very tough. I think, I don't know. Neither season will ever be matched. I will guarantee you that. So your turn. Hit me up on the Discord channel, the Back to the Future voice and text line, any of my social media, carrier pigeon, whatever you got to do. Get that vote in. But which is the greatest individual season in Philadelphia sports history? Be sure to like, subscribe, leave a review, rate the show, whatever you got to do. All of that stuff helps us outsmart the algorithm. I appreciate you listening here on a Feel Good Friday, and fantasy football season's right around the corner. Don't forget, you can get your 3D custom hype chains from Lotwin. Go to lotwin.com, use the promo code TCCPOD to get 10% off of your order. On this day in 1984, Mike Schmidt, Garry Maddox, and Al Holland had guest starring roles on the soap opera One Life to Live as they played construction workers. And thanks to Garry Maddox convincing them, dream come true for Garry Maddox. He already won his World Series title, got to be on his favorite TV show. And then in 1950, Curt Simmons was officially called into active duty. They had 30 days before they would be sent over to the Korean War. Did pitch 9 games after that, but unfortunately the Phillies did miss him in the World Series that year. But sometimes your duty to your country takes priority over your baseball season. So shout out to you, Curt Simmons, a real American hero. We'll have more on what the Phillies try to move and what happens with the outfield now. We'll have more on the whole series here against the Tigers, as well as highlights from the Jimmy Rollins and Ed Wade induction ceremony tonight. Of course, we'll give highlights from the Eric Allen induction ceremony tomorrow. The Union Player Friendly this weekend, but we'll have all the results, everything you missed on Monday when we rewind the weekend, and then we kick off our top 5 for the first 25, and we will crown our champion for the greatest individual season in Philly sports history tournament. Let me know your thoughts on AI. Is AI just too high on the Phillies right now? I don't know. It's supposed to be a beautiful day. The humidity and the heat is gone, at least for the weekend. So go out there and enjoy it. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for August 1st, 2025. My name's Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a feel-good Friday. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.